Mr. Mixer, I fixed it.
Have you been thinking to yourself, man, my mixer is it's not quite as strong as it used to be. It's struggling a little bit with batches. It's sounding a little bit funky, running a little bit rough. Well, have no fear. You know, over time, these machines with use, the parts can degrade. They can start to break down. But we have actually put together this video and a kit just for you to do a complete rebuild on this mixer. Now, what's a complete rebuild, you might ask? Well, let me show you. Now today we're going to be working on the Professional 600 model of the KitchenAid mixer. But the kit and the video will help you to repair multiple models. We have the Professional HD, we have the Professional 5 Plus, and over here we have the Professional 6. Now let's compare. We have the Professional 600 over here on the left, and we have the Professional HD on the right. And the reason these machines look so similar is, well, they are. These are basically the same exact machines. Really, the only difference between these two machines is the package that it came with. It's all just different branding, right? So we got the Professional 600. It comes with some nicer, knobs, and it comes with a nicer raised band. It also came with a 6-quart bowl, as to where the Professional HD over here came with a 5-quart bowl. And then this is just a knob that we added. This is the Comfy Grip, right? So without it, it's just a bare knob. But as far as the internals go, just about every single one of these professional style machines is going to be the exact same thing internally. So since we have this up, let's go ahead and take a look at it. This is the Comfy Grip by New Metro. Now, like I stated, the Professional 600, some of these models came, they came with a knob already in place, but a lot of the models just came with a bare handle. And so that's why we work with a brand called New Metro to bring you the Comfy Grip, and it really just slides over this handle just like so and into place. And just like that, well, you have a nicer looking handle and a comfy grip. Now, if you like this Comfy Grip as much as I do, and it really does go a long ways to help your machine look a little bit better, you can pick up that or any of this stuff on our website, mrmixer.store. Now that we've talked about all of these machines being similar in nature and having the same internal parts, we say, well, what are those internal parts? Well, let's take a look. So here are all of the components that are going to come in our full rebuild kit. So we have our grease and gasket. We have all of our gear set here. So we have the worm gear, we have the hub gear, we have the worm follower gear, and the bevel gear. Over here we have the thrust bearings. These are very, very commonly failed part. It comes with a snap ring. We got the speed control board, a new motor, a new Planetary, and then the motor seal. So when you buy a motor, they never come with these seals. This is a grease protector. It slides over this shaft like so and mounts into place like that to help grease or prevent grease from coming up into the motor. We go ahead and include that for you. And all of these parts right here are gonna be enough to completely rebuild your mixer and make it run like new. Let's get started. Now, the only hiccup in this kit is the Planetary. So this machine in particular, right, this orange color, it's basically impossible to get an orange Planetary. But we do carry these in white, red, black, and silver, and a white or silver one would just look flawless on this machine, add a nice little two-tone effect. All right, let's go ahead and get into the meat and potatoes of this repair. So to get all of this new stuff installed into the machine, we have to take the old stuff out. Now let's start by taking a listen to this machine. You can hear it just has kind of a buzz to it. It just sounds a little bit chunky. And to take care of that, we're gonna need a few tools. So these are some of the tools that you might need during this repair. We have a Phillips head screwdriver, a rubber mallet, some needle nose pliers, a flathead screwdriver, some snap ring pliers, and then a 1/8 inch punch. Now to get started, we're gonna need a flathead screwdriver, and we're just gonna remove this single screw here in the rear of the machine that holds the beauty band in place. Now once that screw is removed, this beauty band literally just pulls up and away from the machine like so. Now with that beauty band removed, we wanna go ahead and turn this mixer sideways here. You're gonna notice that there are 2 screws here, and there are 2 on the other side in the exact same location. We're gonna go ahead, we'll take our Phillips head screwdriver, we'll remove those as well. And we now have all 4 of those screws out of place. We can go ahead and we can just set them down here in the base of the bowl. You can set them off to the side somewhere. Now don't worry, because all of the screws that are left in this machine are all gonna be this exact same size. So you really can't mess it up. You don't have to separate them. You just kind of put them in a pile. Really the only different screw was that one on the beauty band, and it's really tiny, so it's really easy to differentiate. All right, now we're ready to go ahead and just lift off this upper housing, just like so. Now with the upper housing removed, this is what we're left with. So we have the transmission housing, we have the speed board, we have the motor, and then underneath this transmission housing, you're gonna have all of your gears and grease. Now speaking of the transmission housing, now that is not included in the kit. This one is metal, but some of the older models actually had a plastic transmission housing. Those things can crack and fracture and allow those gears to just get absolutely beat up. So if you're taking this thing apart, you might want to also hit our website and upgrade to a metal transmission housing as well. Now speaking of the transmission housing, this is what we need to remove first. There's 4 screws, so there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Let's go ahead and remove those. Now that we have all the screws out of that transmission housing, we just kind of wiggle it a little bit. It's gonna pop up and we'll just pull it away from the machine. There you go. It's gonna expose all of that old dirty black grease and the gears. Now for the sake of this video not being 3 hours long, we are not going to show the regrease portion on this video. But if you are curious, we do have a regrease tutorial we will link at the end of the video for these models. It walks you right through this whole disassembly process and how to regrease the machine. Now let's go ahead and start removing some of these gears here. What we have here is the worm gear. We'll go ahead, that is a floating gear. We'll just pull that away like so. Next, we want to go ahead and we want to clean up some of this grease off of the shaft. It'll help keep things, a little less messy. And well, if you're like me, your life is already messy enough. So let's go ahead, let's pull that away, just kind of clean around the shaft here. And what that's going to do, that's going to reveal a snap ring right here. That's why we need the snap ring pliers. We will need to remove this snap ring next. Here's a little bit better look at that snap ring right there. You see those 2 holes in it? We're gonna take our snap ring pliers, we're gonna take the ends of those, and we're gonna insert them into the holes on that snap ring. We're gonna go ahead and split it, and then go ahead and just lift up and away, like so. Then we're gonna need to take our flathead screwdriver. So these 2 gears sit on top of each other. We're just gonna get right underneath, give it a little wiggle, pry that up. It should slide off, and you can just go ahead and pull it out of place just like that. Now, once you have that snap ring and the bevel gear off, this is what we're left with. If you can tell, there's a little pin right here. You should be able to just push this out by hand. We can just go ahead and pull that away from the machine, just like that. Now, as you pull that pin, you want to keep a hand on this Planetary here because, well, they can slide away from the machine. This one is actually kind of being held in place, but sometimes they will fall away. This is now ready to be pulled out. What we need to do, we need to take a rubber mallet. We're just going to give this thing a few light taps. Now this one definitely took a little bit more force than normal, but as you tap that away, eventually it breaks free and you can pull it from the machine like that. Now the reason that Planetary was so hard to get out and the reason why we're gonna replace it, if you take a look at that shaft, you see how it's just hanging a little bit to the left there. Now there is no pin that holds this shaft in place. It's just pressed down in here. There's some little splines on this shaft. There's some little splines down here in this Planetary housing, and they mash those down together and they stay fit for a long time. They're a nice press fit, but eventually you can see it is leaning, which, it causes those gears to ride and wear funny, makes them a little bit harder to get off as well. So yeah, definitely want to replace this. And then lastly on the gears here with the Planetary removed, this worm follower gear can now just be plucked right away from the machine, just like that. Then we want to go ahead and remove our speed control board here. And to do that, we're going to need some needle nose pliers. There are some little clips on here. This is the Hall sensor. This should just pull away. You can just kind of just pull on it, unclip this clip, put that off to the side. And then we'll need to take our needle nose pliers. I like to put a hand on this board just for, to brace it a little bit. And then we're just gonna wiggle on these connectors, and these are gonna just pull away from that board like so. There are 4 of them in total, so let's go ahead and pull all of those away. All right, so we now have all of these wires out of place. Don't worry, when we put it back together, I'll tell you what orientation those go in. If you're curious, or if you just want to replace your board, we do have a video specifically on the board as well. We can link that at the end. But for now, let's go ahead and turn this machine 180 here. And that's going to allow us a better look at these 2 screws right here. These are the screws that mount this board into place. So Phillips head screwdriver, let's go ahead and remove those. And once those 2 screws are removed, we can just go ahead and we can just pull this board away from the machine. So if you take a look at these wires here, so we have two of these that lead back to the motor, and then we have a white and a black one. These are our power wires that run down to the power cord, so we'll pull those out of the way. And to remove this motor, it's really only held in place by two screws. There's one there and one there on each side of the fan. Those are Phillips head. Let's go ahead and remove those as well. And then once we remove those two screws that mount the motor, it can just be pulled from the machine. Now, once the motor, Planetary, speedboard, gears are removed from the machine, this is what we're left with. And there are a few things that you may want to do or inspect before you go any further. Let me show you. Now, the first thing we want to inspect, you see this white plastic piece right here? That is the arm lift assembly. And how that works is when you move the handle up and down, that it acts kind of like a cam. You see how it twists, locks it into place? Well, right where that screw goes through, it has a tendency to crack. So if you're noticing any cracks or breaks in yours, this is a good time to get in there to replace that. We do have videos for that here on YouTube. Then the next thing we want to take a peek at, right there where I'm shining that light, there is a pin right there. There's one on each side. Those are alignment pins. Now, what can happen here as you run these machines, especially with heavy loads, you know, you're getting a ton of vibration, a ton of just force being applied to this head. It's wiggling it, it's moving it around, which can cause these little pins there. You see it, they're kind of recessed down in there, but those can actually drift up and even peek out of, you know, the little hole that they're in. Those need to be driven back down into place. Now, if those come loose and those drift up, it's going to allow these bolts right here to get loose as well. And then this whole head will just be sloppy. See, this one's pretty firm. This whole head will be sloppy. It'll just be bouncing up and down, moving side to side. So to fix that, like I said, definitely want to punch those pins back down into place. And then as preventative maintenance to keep that head from ever getting loose, we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna apply our bulletproof washer set. Now, our bulletproof lock washers, these are also available on our website. Let's install them. Now, to install our bulletproof lock washer set, it is just a matter of removing these mounting bolts one at a time. So let's go ahead, let's remove those. And then once you have one removed, we're just gonna slide our lock washer over that bolt, and we're gonna go ahead and then tighten that back down into place. You wanna make sure that you get this basically as tight as you can. And then we'll go ahead and do that with the other two as well. Now, to make sure these two pins didn't drift up here, we're gonna need a 1/8 inch punch. We're just gonna set that down into that pinhole. We're gonna take a hammer and we're just gonna give that a few light taps just to make sure that those are pressed down into place. Now, those bulletproof washers, they do come in sets of 6, and the reason why is there are 3 more mounting bolts on the underside of this base. This base also can get loose, so you'll want to take, if you order those, you'll definitely want to go ahead and install those under here as well, just to make sure that this whole machine, just has the preventative maintenance done to it to make sure that these common issues won't arise. So now that we got everything tightened down, we are just about ready to start reinstalling stuff, but we do need to get some of this old grease out of here. Like I said, we're gonna link a tutorial for the Regrease at the end, just for the sake of time, but we're gonna use our metal grease pick here. We do offer these on the website. Makes it super easy to get into these crevices, and we're just gonna go ahead and clear out all of this old grease to make way for the new stuff. Now, once you have all of the grease removed from the machine, it should look something like this. If yours isn't quite as clean, that is okay. You can have a little bit of old grease left in there, but you want to try and get a majority of it out. Now, once we have that lower housing clean, we want to move into this transmission housing. Now, there is a gasket right here. One comes with the kit, so we're just going to take this, we're going to throw it away. And then if you look right here, you see this square drive. That is the hub gear. That's where you drive your external attachments from. You can just put some pressure on this right here. It'll pop out just like that. We can go ahead and remove that from the transmission housing. And once we have that hub gear out of there, we can come through and we're gonna clean this transmission housing, clean all the grease out of this as well. All right, take a look at that. We have that transmission housing nice and clean. This is basically ready to start putting things back together. There is one more thing that we want to do though. And that is to go ahead and grab your worm gear here, right? The one with the big wheel on it. And we're going to remove the ends of these. This is called the sleeve bearing. We want to go ahead and just remove the ends of these. We're going to reuse these. This is not a commonly failed part, so that's why we did not include these in the kit. But we'll just go ahead, we'll remove these from this gear and we'll install them on the new one. Now again, these things are called the sleeve bearings. There's a front and a rear sleeve bearing. We want to go ahead and clean these off, well, because they got some grease on them as well. Okay, take a look. We have these sleeve bearings all cleaned up. Now, what do you want to look for here? You want to make sure that these aren't cracked, these fins. You want to make sure they're not cracked or bent. So we're going to give these a nice inspection. A lot of times where you'll see those cracks are right on the edges here, right where these fins meet up with the center bearing itself. So look for any cracks, any bends, any abnormalities. If you have those, you will want to replace these. All right, round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. You are just, halfway, a little over halfway there. We're now ready to start putting everything back together. Let's do it. Now, here are all of the parts that we are gonna be reinstalling, and we're gonna start just kind of in this orientation here, right? So we're gonna do the motor, the board, the planetary, the gears, and then the grease and gasket. All right, so starting off with the motor here, okay, we're gonna locate these two threaded like little pillars right here. We're gonna take this motor and we're gonna set that down. You can tell these motors, they do have the screw holes, right, where you remove those screws from. And we're just gonna drop those down right on top of those threaded pillars, just like so. And we're gonna go ahead and install those two screws. Now, if you remember at the start of this video, we put this motor seal right here on the motor already. Now you can see you want that seal to be pressed up right against these little ledges right here. You want this motor to be nice and centered in that channel. That's how this seal actually functions. This motor needs to be pressed far enough forward that this seal presses against those tabs. That's gonna keep any grease or oil from leaking back into the motor cavity. Now, once we have that motor seated into place, it is now time for our speed control board. So, you see he's got these two little mounting holes right here. We're gonna line those up right here, set them down, and we're gonna put a couple screws to mount this board into place. Now remember, as I discussed earlier, all of these screws are the same size, so you don't have to worry about figuring out which one is which. Let's go ahead and get this puppy mounted. Now, one thing you want to make sure of when you're tightening these down into place is to not tighten them down too much. Now, these backings here on this board, they are plastic, and if you over tighten these, you will crack them, you can damage them, so you definitely want to make sure not to over tighten them. You just want them to get just hand tight. There we go, just like that. We're gonna go ahead and just slide this back and forth once or twice to make sure that it's functioning properly. That is just fine. Now, with the board mounted in place, we're ready to start putting our wires on here. Now, the cool thing is these two leads right here on the motor, these are motor 1 and motor 2. They're marked on the board right here. They do say motor 1 and motor 2. And you don't have to worry about the orientation of these two. They can go on in any orientation. So let's just go ahead and push motor 1 and motor 2 into place. Now, once you have motor 1 and motor 2 into place, we now have our power wires here, a white and a black wire. There is, if we turn this the right way here, you can see this little peg right here. We want to make sure that these go around that. This is going to prevent them from getting down and getting pinched by the housing. It just keeps them up and away. And we're going to go ahead and install these into the board as well. Now, these do go on in a certain orientation. Now let's go ahead and take a peek at this board. You see this peg right here, that is white and neutral, right? So neutral goes, the white goes on the neutral, and then you have your line, and also says black. So we're gonna put our black wire here and our white wire on the neutral. Okie doke, yeah, let's go ahead and get those clipped into place here, right? So we got our white one, and we're gonna put that, like I said, on the neutral. Then we're gonna take our black one here. There's only one port left right there. It does say black and line. So let's go ahead and clip that into place as well. Now remember, take your hand, put a little pressure on this back side so that you're not, really bending on this board. Like I said, it is plastic. You can crack it. So just go ahead, be a little easy with it. Okay, those are now all in place. And then the last one we have here, this is called the Hall sensor. Now this installs, you see these little prongs right here? There's two little clips on there. Those clip down into this port right here. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna take the long black side, right? So there's two sides. There's the short one and the long one. You want this long black side to be up against the motor, and we're just gonna go ahead and we're just gonna put it into this little slot right here, and we're just gonna put a little pressure down onto it. You'll hear it click into place. Just like that. Now, I know I said we were gonna save the grease for last, but that was not true, because we actually need to put a nice little layer of grease down here on the bottom of this lower gear casing. So we're just gonna go ahead, we opened it up, we're gonna take some of our grease out, and again, like I said, we're just gonna fill this lower housing here. We do not want a ton of grease down there, just enough to kind of coat the bottom. Now let's go ahead and get some up here by this motor shaft as well. You can spin the fan in the back of the machine, and it'll spin, those the gear teeth there, and we can just go ahead, fill that in take a few little globs, just kind of get it nice up underneath the motor there. And just like I said, spin that, make sure that that is nice and lubricated, just like that. Hey, how's it going down there? The next thing that we want to do, we want to get underneath here. This is what we call the internal ring gear right here. So there's usually a little bit of gunk right here. So you definitely want to clean, you see that green right there? We want to clean around these edges, get some of that trash out of there. Now, once we have all of this cleaned up, there is one more light calibration that we want to do. So this internal ring gear has actually slid down a little bit, right? It's kind of falling out of the machine. We need to take it, we need to tap this back up into place. And how we're gonna achieve that, we're gonna take a hammer, we're gonna take a punch, and we're gonna put it right on the edge of this gear here, and we're just gonna kind of tap up lightly. And we're gonna do it on all 4 corners here. Now, as you tap this, you're gonna feel it start to move up. Now, the goal here as you punch this thing up, well, you can see this lip right here, but then there's a secondary little lip right there. Listen to my fingernail. You hear my fingernail tick that? This is a secondary lip. You want this gear to sit just in line or just above that secondary lip all the way around. Now, once you have that tapped up where it needs to be, we're gonna take a little bit of grease on our finger and we're just gonna run around these gears. We basically just wanna fill in these teeth. Now, previously, there's very little lubrication on this gear, and that can cause excess friction, excess heat, but also it just makes the machine a little bit noisier because there's no grease barrier there to dampen any of that metal on metal. There we go, take a look at that. As you can tell, like I said, not a ton of grease that you want to put up there, just basically enough to just fill in all of those gaps between the teeth. Now, once you have that internal ring gear grease, we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna reach for our Planetary here. Now, like I said, we're gonna have to go with white because we can't get the orange, but it's gonna have a nice creamsicle vibe. It's gonna look really nice. So let's go ahead, let's get that lined up. We're gonna push this Planetary up and through like so. You see that? We're just gonna wiggle that around to get those gear teeth to mesh up. You'll hear it pop up into place. Now, you want to keep a hand on this Planetary, well, because if you let go, it's going to fall away from the machine. So then we'll, like I said, go ahead and get it into place. Then we're going to reach for our worm follower gear. It looks like this. This goes right over the shaft. We're going to drop that down into place. And now we are ready to install our pin. It goes through this pinhole right here on the Planetary. So we'll just go ahead and we'll slide that into place. There we go. Now, once we have that pin into place, we are now ready for our bevel gear. Now, take a look at that. You see how it has like a little square cutout right there? That is designed to fit over the little square cutout that is on this worm follower gear. This should just drop down into place. Oh, take a look there as well. There's pinholes on there as well. So these pinholes need to align with the pin as well as the gear. We'll just drop that down. You see how that's seated into place there. You want these to mesh up real nice. Let's take another look at that. See, you want this to just drop down into place. It is fully seated. You don't want to see any like large gaps or anything here, but that is down into place appropriately. Now we need to secure it with a snap ring. Now take a look right here. You can see there's a little channel carved out right there. That's where that snap ring needs to sit. Once you have it in place, it'll click down into there and you won't be able to move it. So we'll go ahead, we'll get our snap ring, we'll get our snap ring pliers, and we'll go ahead and we'll put this thing down into place. So what we're gonna do, like I said, just like how you took it off, you're gonna get those little nubs of the snap ring pliers into place, spread this. Now, keep a hand on it because these things are under a lot of tension when you're spreading them, and if your pliers pop off, it could shoot across the room. So keep a hand on there. We will slide that down into place, and it is now seated. Take a look at that. That gear can now not come off of this machine. Now at this point, we're ready for a little bit more grease. We're just gonna go ahead and we're just gonna spin. You can take your hand down here on the Planetary. You can spin that Planetary freely now. You see how I'm turning that. And we're just gonna coat these teeth. We don't want this thing to just be covered and coated in grease, but we do want a nice healthy layer on both of these gears all the way around. There we go, take a look at that. That is what we're looking for. Now, you couldn't see earlier, this is what I was spinning. You can spin this by hand to just kind of spin it around as you apply grease. Again, you don't want too much, just a light coating, and that looks perfect.
All right, now that we got that snap ring on, we got those gears greased up, we are now ready for the worm gear. That is this gear right here. Now we need to do a little assembly on this because remember, we have our little sleeve bearings. Now this one is the rear bearing. Take a look at this real quick. Let me grab this other one. Take a look at that. You see how this one has a lip on it and this one does not? This is the one we're gonna want, the one with the lip on it. We're gonna go ahead, we're gonna take our worm gear and that's gonna go on the rear portion by the wheel, just like that. Then we're gonna wanna go ahead and get our thrust bearings. Now these things, they have, the washers, they have a flat side and then they have a side with what they call a race on it, which is a little channel that the bearings spin around. So you wanna take the flat side and you wanna put the flat side down towards the gear. And then you wanna take the bearing portion and you want to slide that into place, and then you want to take your other race side with the channel on it and put that down towards the bearing, and those balls actually roll in that channel. And then lastly here, we're going to go ahead, we're going to take our sleeve gear here, our front sleeve bearing, and we'll go ahead and drop that into place as well. Now just for your information here, the reason why this one has like that larger lip on there and this one doesn't, well, that accounts for the space on this one that gets taken up by these bearings. Now you know. So once we have the worm gear assembled here, we can go ahead and drop that into place. Now the goal here, you see these tabs, they have a side on them right there. They have a flat side. You want these flat sides going up and down, and this is just gonna drop right into place just like that. There is gonna be a little, forward and back play there. This is a floating gear, that is normal, but definitely, like I said, you want those tabs up and down. Now before we go any further, let me give you a better look at that so you can see what I'm talking about. You see there's the straight edge. You want that up and down here, up and down there. If these get kicked off to the side and they're not straight up and down, the transmission housing won't want to seat on here properly. So we are now ready to go ahead and start adding some grease to this. So we want to go ahead and, like I said, just fill in all of these gear teeth. Just put it like a little healthy coating on there. And then you can come back to the fan back here. You can spin that gear and it'll really just help to get it all coated properly. All right, there we go. Take a look at that. That is what we're looking for. Like I said, we don't want too much grease in here. Reason being, pay special attention to these thrust bearings, right? If you get too much grease up here, the grease will actually try and distribute through those. And since this gear can move forward and backwards in here, if you have grease that tries to distribute through these thrust bearings, it causes a knock. So after you put this machine together, if you're noticing a knocking sound, take this worm gear out and clean up some around this thrust bearing. So now that we're finished with all the gears and the grease in the lower housing, it is time for this transmission housing, right? We're gonna take what we call the hub gear, right? This is our hub gear, and you're gonna just drop it right into place. It should just slide right down into there. No problem. You hear that click? Now we need to go ahead and grease this. So just like with the other gears, we want to take a finger full of grease here and we're just going to put it onto this hub gear and we're going to start spinning it. You can coat this hub gear pretty heavily. There we go, take a look at that. Now all we want to do is get a few more little fingers full and we just want to go around this transmission housing and we just want to add some grease. That's not enough, let's get a little more there. We want to add some grease just to the sidewalls here. All right, there we go. Take a look at that. So we got a nice light layer around the whole thing. We got a little healthy coating there on the hub gear. We're now ready to install this on the machine. Now before we install it, there's actually one more thing that we do need to do. We need to add our gasket. We don't want to forget that. It has an adhesive backing, so we're just going to peel the paper off like that. And this is the orientation that we want this thing in. You see it has an opening on the front. We just want the opening on the gasket to match the opening on the transmission housing here. There's a few pins right here, guide pins for that housing. There's cutouts for those on the gasket. So just drop that into place. Take your thumb, press it down all the way around just so you can make sure that you have some good adhesion there from the glue on the back of that gasket. Now we're ready to drop this thing into place. So, the motor comes through this portion right here where that gap is. So just want to get it around the other side of this Planetary here, get it on, and you're going to have to weasel your way around the speed board back there because we want to make sure that we're not putting any pressure, bending this, damaging that at all. And then once you get it around that, you're just going to wiggle it down into place just like that until you are firmly seated. And when this housing is seated properly, you should see no gaps in here whatsoever. I mean, it should be a nice seal. If it is not seating for you, what you can do, you can put a little downward pressure on it while you spin this fan because it's going to spin all of the gears in there and just kind of allow this thing to drop down into place better. All right, we are in the 7th inning stretch here. We are just about done with this repair. Now, all we need to do really now is go ahead and take our 4 screws and mount this transmission housing back to the machine. Okay, so we have our 4 screws installed into our transmission housing here. It's a good time to plug it in. Let's go ahead and test this puppy, make sure that it is functioning properly before we put the upper housing on. Take a listen to that. That sounds great. Did somebody say new mixer? All right, let's finish stitching this thing back together. We got our upper housing here. We are just going to drop that down into place, and then we're gonna find our 4 mounting screws, and we're just gonna put those into place as well. Now that we have all 4 of the housing screws in, all that's left to do is put on the band. We're simply gonna reach around the front here, go ahead, and you know, it just sits in this little channel. So we wanna get that band seated in that channel. We'll push these ends together like that, and that is going to reveal some threads right there for our last little tiny screw here. So let's go ahead and get that started. All right, now that we've got that started, we're gonna go ahead and finish screwing that in. Now, you don't wanna use power tools on this. You do not wanna tighten this down too tight, just hand tight, because, well, you can strip out the threads on this housing because, well, that screw is stainless and the housing is aluminum, and aluminum is softer than stainless. So don't crank down too hard, just enough to get this band tight. Now, just for good measures here, we're gonna give her one last test run, still sounding flawless. What do you guys think of that creamsicle vibe with that white Planetary? I think it looks pretty great. But then again, not everything's about me, so I'll let you decide. Now, the last thing I want to do here is install our quick install spring and washer. Now, these things come with a card to a QR code. We do have a video here on YouTube showing how to install these, but honestly, they're very simple. Take a look. We're going to start with our spring. We're going to take it just like a keychain. We're going to split this, this spring with our thumb, and we're just going to twist it around that agitator pin right there. Now, once you get to a certain point, it's going to be harder to turn. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna take a flathead screwdriver here, and we're gonna put it right on the edge of the spring here to just help twist it around into place. We are almost there. There we go. The spring is now in place. Now it's time for the washer. The washer comes with a split in it, so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna get that on here as well. And we'll just push that up the shaft. And then using our flat blade screwdriver, again, we will assist in turning that around that agitator pin. And lastly, all we need to do is go ahead and take this washer and bend it back into place. There we go, take a look at that. We have a brand new spring and washer in place there. It really goes a long way to help improve the function of your machine. All right, well, if you can reach, give yourself a pat on the back because you did it. We made it through a complete rebuild on the Professional 600. This thing is now ready to rock. It's purring like a kitten. You heard it. Now, anything that you've seen in this video can be obtained, and well, even more, from our website, mrmixer.store. So make sure to check that out. If you're interested in doing the complete rebuild on your mixer, we have the full package there. Now, as always, if this video has brought you any joy, make sure to like and subscribe, as that will really help our channel. Now, I truly appreciate all of you sticking around and watching this video, and if I could stay here all day in front of this camera, I would. These machines ain't gonna fix themselves, so I gotta get back to it, but I appreciate you. We'll see you next time.